for coming to the session. My name is Julie Burkin, I'm an occupational therapist and I'm lead for the Breathlessness Service, and this is Mailka Harboun, who's a physiotherapist who's working in this with us. So we realise that there's a range of expertise in the room, and we're going to talk today, take some time today to talk about managing energy and also engaging people in exercise. So there may well be things in there that you're already familiar with, you're already doing, but we hope there's something for everybody to take away. And we're also hoping that we've got some time at the end of the session to be able to just exchange ideas and to share practice and to have comments and just a bit more of a kind of question, answer or comment session that we can share with each other. So we're hoping to share some practical strategies, but also how that links in with what we know and the theory and the evidence that we have out there, and what's available to us. And as Anna introduced us all to this morning, the breathing, thinking, functioning model, we're focusing this afternoon on the functioning and thinking elements of it. So recognising that obviously when we're trying to get people to manage their energy, that's having a huge impact on their function, and when we're looking at exercises, obviously we're looking at trying to reduce that deconditioning cycle that I'm sure we're all aware of, but also how that interplays with the thinking component, so how people are behaving and how people's behaviour impacts on the way that they're actually on their energy levels and their ability to exercise or their motivation to exercise. So we're looking at that interplay too and how they actually impact on each other. So I'm sure this won't be a surprise to us, but often when we say when the idea of managing energy or activity pacing is brought up for patients, they often think, on the one hand you're telling me to manage my energy or trying to pace myself, on the other hand you're telling me to exercise, so which is it? And there feels this sort of almost contradiction in terms of what we're trying to do. And it's not, sometimes people, will not be able to kind of get over that, but what we're trying to do is get a balance. And we're trying to explain it in terms of efficiency. So when we're trying to have a look at energy levels and managing energy, we're looking at using the body in the most efficient way, and looking at using your energy in the most efficient way also. So that's looking at tasks. We'll go on a little bit more about how we actually can do that with people, or how we can go through that with patients. But it's all about efficiency. When we're looking at exercise and engaging people in exercise, we're also looking at trying to ultimately help the body to work in the most efficient way by trying to make it as fit as possible. So trying to explain things in terms of efficiency, and that's what we're trying to get at, can often help with patients as well, so trying to put it over. And we also looking at analogies as well. Analogies can help people to engage in managing their energy, and it can help to make it perhaps a bit more of a real example in terms of trying to explain the concept. So I'm sure again these things will not be any news to you in going through. And I'm just going to stop because I meant to ask at the beginning, in terms of who we've got here, in terms of the makeup of people. So would you mind if I just have a quick show of hands of who we've got? Have we got any OTs in the audience? Any OTs? Have we got any physios? Okay.
Yeah.
Any nurses? And doctors? Okay. Anybody I've missed out? No. Okay. Just to get an idea of kind of, what the experiences in the room. So analogies can be helpful again, and you may well have heard of these. So the idea of a bank account, so not running the bank account too low. There are things that are going to come into and go out of the account. Looking at that, like energy in terms of the battery and being able to not run the battery down to flat. And the idea of a jug, Dr. Diane Cox, who's done a lot of work with chronic fatigue syndrome, has kind of looked at this idea of a jug, which is, like the jug being the body, water in it being the energy. And sometimes when we're trying to get people to score or kind of measure their energy, how they're feeling, sometimes we can use this as a very visual tool. So to say to people, where on the jar would you actually put your level of energy? Or the jug, so they would then kind of put a line where they think their energy level is, and you can then use it in terms of other, when you're doing an activity, where is it then? Or when you're doing, at the end of the day, where is it? So you've got a very visual way of measuring kind of where the energy is. But also looking at, there are things that can fill up the jug, so there are things that might rejuvenate you a little bit. We're not claiming to kind of make people have lots and lots of energy, but we know that things like relaxation, mindfulness exercises, also things, activities like craft activities, there is some evidence to suggest that those kind of things can help to restore the energy levels as well to a certain degree. But most of the things that people do in their day will actually be draining them of energy. So in terms of this idea, this analogy idea, I'm just going to hand over to Mailka and using another analogy of the energy jar.
So the energy jar, we quite like within BIS to give patients a picture. When we do teaching on breathlessness or on pacing, we always try to use pictures, because pictures will stay with the patients much longer, much more efficiently than words. They've heard their nurses, their doctors, everybody told them that they need to pace themselves. But we have to try to find a different way of passing the message on to them, and hopefully a way that will stick on. So I'm not expecting from you to carry one of these in your bag every time you go to see a patient, but some of the clinicians here might be running clinics or having groups of patients. So that's a good way, we feel, of explaining the concept of pacing to patients. So we're going to I'm going to talk about a lady. She's called Alice, and Alice wakes up in the morning, and that's her energy jar. That's what she's got when she wakes up. She's full of energy, okay? Now, Alice has a bath or shower in the morning, and it's going to use a lot of her energy, okay? So energy is going slowly down. So we're looking at Alice's normal day before she's seen a clinician, before she's been taught about pacing, or before she starts to use the concept of pacing. After a shower, she goes around the house, does a bit of cleaning, prepares the meal, and we've got a little bit less energy in the jar. It's slowly going down. After this, I think I've got mixed up with my jars. After the cleaning, she's going to have a meal. We know that, actually that's not really, let me just correct that. Eating for breathless patients uses a lot of energy. So after a meal, she's going to be a bit lower on the jar. She carries on with the day, does a little bit more around the house, she goes around to see her friends, and the jar is still going down. And that's our poor Alice. At the end of the day, she still has to climb the stairs, get off her clothes, put her pajamas on, but there's very little in there. So Alice is really, really struggling, and she's not happy. She said to you, oh darling, it's really, really difficult in the evening. I just can't do anything. I have to go to bed at 6 o'clock. I have to go upstairs at 6 o'clock because I don't have the energy. After that, it's too much. Say, okay, well, Alice, there are things you can do. Your day doesn't have to be like that. We can change things. So what about you wake up in the morning, you have your shower, do your little things around the house, and you have lunch, and just after lunch, try to take a little bit of time for yourself. What do you think would help you? I don't know, you can pick something that's going to help you to recharge your battery, to fill in the jar again. It doesn't have to be a nap. She can do relaxation, any type of relaxation that she wants. She can sit and read a book, she can listen to music. Something that's to her is going to help her recharge her batteries so that she's got a bit more in there, and so that when it comes to the end of the day, okay, it's slower, oops, there is less in there, but, oops, how many jars do you have in your bag? There is less, but that's still enough for her to, rather than going up to bed at 6 o'clock and not spending the rest of the day with her family, she can stay there a bit longer, she can watch a movie, and she can go up the stairs and get ready to go to bed in a much, much more comfortable way than if she just tries to go through the day without taking time to fill up that jar again. Okay? Good. Now back to Julie.
Okay, so we're also acknowledging that with, as we know, activity pacing involves behaviour modification, so we're asking people to actually change their habits, their lifestyles. And I know this sounds an obvious thing to say, but often how many times do we get to patients and actually they've been told, yeah, I know I need to pace myself, but they're not actually doing anything. And I think we're not able to do anything different, because what is pacing? You know, like, what does that actually mean? And I think also it's interesting when I was saying this morning that when we're introducing techniques to people and strategies to people, it's the way that in which we do them as well, with education being a kind of large component of that really, but acknowledging to them that this isn't an easy thing to do, but there are ways that we can try and manage your energy. And we've just looked at this in terms of, there's an occupational therapist called Miranda Thieu who's written a book which we do have the reference to, and has looked at 4 stages of lifestyle management for fatigue. Now this isn't fatigue specific to breathlessness, but the principles still apply. And again, there may be things that, you know, may not be news to us, you know, as healthcare professionals when we're doing this, but sometimes might be some ways in there that we can actually, you know, enable us to talk to patients about their energy levels and what's going on. So we recognise that fatigue is, you know, like an energy, or patients' energy levels. There's a multitude of things that are impacting on those. So obviously you know, the breathlessness isn't helping, they may be stressed by their breathlessness, there may be other things going on that are all impacting on that level of energy that they have. And achieving lifestyle change is very difficult if patients don't actually understand that there are lots of components to it. And I know that sounds really obvious again to us, but often people will lump it all in one go and think, you know, this is, you know, I'm just managing, I know I've got no energy, but, you know, what can I do about it? And they're just lumping everything together. So trying to explain that there are different components, and some of those might actually be able to be, you know, like looking if there are any areas that can be reversed also. And as healthcare professionals, we're key in helping the person to actually identify and make those links between those things, much like in the model of breathing, thinking, functioning. So looking at how, you know, their behaviour and the way that they're behaving or in their lifestyle actually may be having an impact on their energy levels, and making that connection, which helps them to then have some level of control over it, or feel like they can have some level of control over it, rather than feeling that they're, you know, this thing is happening and there's no control and there's nothing that I can do about this. So when we're engaging, the first stage is engaging the patient and understanding energy. And we haven't put anything in here about managing or measuring energy levels, because we use, in the breathlessness service, for breathlessness we use 3 simple measures on a scale of 0 to 10. So asking people about how their breathlessness is, and getting them to score it on a 0 to 10, and then also how does your breathlessness make you feel, so, and then noting that emotion and scoring, getting them to try and score that emotion, and then also looking at how confident they feel to manage their breathlessness. And we do the same sort of thing with energy levels and with fatigue as well, or tiredness, or whatever term they want to describe that. So how fatigued do they feel on a scale of 0 to 10? How does their fatigue make them feel, and how do they score that on a 0 to 10 scale? And then how confident do they feel to manage their fatigue? But as we know, there are lots of measures out there for fatigue, if we're specifically kind of looking at that also. But there are also different ways of measuring it in terms of, you know, visual things, like we were talking about, like the jug, and simple things that might be slightly easier for people to actually quantify in a way, some way, or sort of be able to measure their energy levels. So looking at kind of what is energy, what kind of things will be sapping their energy, what kind of things will be topping up their energy. So looking at really about how it's generated, and really, you know, educating about why it happens in chronic and long-term conditions, why people are having problems with their energy levels with a level of breathlessness, which sounds again very obvious to us, but actually explaining it to people, and then that cycle of deconditioning, which can actually make the breathlessness and the fatigue worse. So trying to educate on what's actually happening, and encouraging, as we said, this idea that there is something, this internal locus of control, so if there is something that they can be able to do about it, and there are some strategies that we can use. And I think, again, as we would do with any other symptom, acknowledging the hindrance of limited energy levels on it, and how that, you know, that can be majorly impacting on their lifestyle. And also, as we said, just trying to look at if there are any scope for improving other lifestyle factors that are having an impact on their energy levels also. So identifying the personal factors, so having that, when we're having that conversation with people, looking at, the general population feel that when tiredness happens, it needs, rest and sleep is going to recover it. So there's no surprise that people are actually wanting to have rest and rest and sleep all the time. And I know that we know that as health care professionals, but that's not necessarily the case. But trying to get that over to patients in some way, identifying any patterns, as I say, identifying what's consuming the energy and what's providing it and what's topping it up, and establishing a baseline, which can be done in a number of ways. So you might want to ask people to keep an activity diary, to have a look at what kind of things they're doing over their week, scoring their level of fatigue over the level of the week as well, so you've just got an idea. Or some people might just want to do it for a day, so it's not too onerous on them. You don't want to be taking up so much energy doing the activity diary, but a way of establishing, what's the baseline level of activity, and then looking at trying to gradually kind of pace up activities from the baseline. So you're again gradually trying to improve things. And then looking at the plan, there has to be, or we're kind of engaging in this sort of process of change. So whatever that might be, or however small that might be, you're looking for changes that are actually going to help this person to manage their energy. So setting goals is a way that we would all do that. Looking at trying to have some marker that we're trying to work towards with people, and also looking at how do they gain quality rest in their day. If people are saying that they're napping all day, we know that like short naps are okay, but if people then tend to sleep longer during the day, that's not a particularly helpful strategy for energy. But we know that the body does need rest as well. So how can we look at more effective ways of rest, and what do they do to actually have rest in their day as well, which is obviously important. So looking at relaxation and mindfulness strategies can help, and we have used those strategies to help with pacing with people, to give them an effective period of rest. So we had one lady who was she'd go on a walk, and basically she'd kind of knew she had to exercise, would whip round the park feeling really exhausted because she'd just sped round it, and we'd get ways of trying to stop along the way and using her senses in terms of mindfulness techniques to say, like what we've got in front of me, there's we've got a tree here, what does it look like, what does it smell like? So we're trying to use those techniques just very practically in doing the other activity that she's doing, and also breaking down activities. So we're not saying to people that we want to try and avoid the avoidance of activities, and pacing isn't about not doing things, it's about doing things slightly differently to be able to then do some of the things that you'd like to do. So again, sometimes it's just the language that we use with patients as well, so we don't want to get into this habit of giving up activities or avoiding activities. And then, I know this again sounds obvious, but applying a common sense approach to fatigue. So looking at increasing the activities gradually and working on one activity at a time. So if you can get somebody to see that pacing is going to work with one small activity or one isolated activity, the chances of them then being able to kind of roll that out into other areas of their life is actually quite effective, quite likely. So an example is we had a chap who was basically wanted to kind of whip through, clean all the windows and do everything all in one go. It was causing some tension and stress between him and his wife, increasing his breathlessness, increasing his fatigue. So we looked at a way of pacing, and that was kind of happening throughout, everything. You just kind of rush, get it all done, and then just feel really exhausted. So the most important, or the priority for him, was the windows, which is what he was wanting to focus in on. So we looked at that specific activity and ways of trying to pace that, which he did, so trying to just breaking it down, doing a bit at a time. And again, it sounds kind of common sense and obvious to us, but focusing on one thing, he actually found that he did have a bit more energy in terms of just trying to break that up over the week rather than doing it all in one go, and then thought, actually, this is something that could work for me in the next thing that I do. So you've got that kind of motivation to be able to try it in another area of life as well. And what we're trying to do is looking at trying to avoid this all or nothing. And again, we use sometimes visual cards, so these pictures we will use with people, and people will often identify with these things, won't they? So you're trying to, patients will have a kind of an amount of energy, go all out and do something, a bit like the man with his windows, and then there'll be this slump afterwards when they've got a real kind of slump in their energy levels. So you're trying to avoid that all or nothing, because actually the recovery period is going to be longer. And we do, as I say, give out laminated cards. We're developing a toolkit. We give out laminated cards for people just as a visual prompt of like, they won't have to have this lengthy explanation of the all or nothing or, like energy levels, but actually just having a prompt card that is a picture of something. They'll think, oh yeah, I'm falling into that pattern. I'm just going to think about this and pull this back. And the picture on the other side is supposed to be gentle rolling hills. So it's kind of, rather than this roller coaster of all or nothing or boom or bust, we're trying to kind of get the idea of gentle hills. So, and the other thing that we just take a quick look at as well is what people's priorities are, because often, again, another visual aid to have a look at kind of getting people to see what they want to focus their energy on. If we're talking about that energy jar that Mailka was talking about and the amount of energy that's in there, so the amount of blue liquid that's in there, what do they want to use that liquid on? What do they want to do that? Bearing in mind a good few scoops of energy are going to be taken out with the breathing anyway, but what do they want to use the rest of the energy on, and what are the priorities? So people may well have seen this exercise before. Has people heard of the rocks, pebbles and sand exercise? So bag of thinking, what should do? But anyway, this worked in the last one, so I feel less anxious about it this time. I have to say, having said that, it's probably not going to work. Okay. Right, so we've got the rocks in life, which are our main priorities. They're the things that are the most important things to us. We've got our pebbles, otherwise known as chickpeas, which are the things that we have to do in a day, the things that take up energy but are not particular priorities. And then we've got the sand, otherwise known as salt. That we have the kind of minutiae of life, if you like, the things that we often can kind of overwhelm and take over, but actually are not really important. So I'm not saying, again, like Mailka said, that we're going to be bringing this round to every patient that we see, but a visual reminder again of kind of how they can go. And I think you kind of get the picture. But basically, so if we're saying that for, we're getting so bogged down, and patients are kind of getting so bogged down in all the things that are really not important to them. So they're filling their sort of, this is their sort of, if you're thinking about it in a day and the energy and kind of life, they're filling it up with the things that are not so important to them, but actually it's kind of taking up a lot of energy. And then you've got things, well, hang on a minute, I actually need to get up in the morning, I need to get washed and dressed, I need to take the bin out, I need to do those things. They're not particularly important, but I actually need to do them, and they take my energy as well. So you've got the things that you're actually needing to do. And then you've got the things you think, well, hang on a minute, it's really important that I spend a bit of time with my granddaughter, or it's really important that I actually get myself up the stairs and go to bed at night because of my pride, I want to do that. So those important things, you're thinking, right, okay, we've got those things in here, but hang on a minute, I'm kind of filling up and I'm really exhausted now, and these are really important, I haven't got time to do these things. So it's like, okay, so we've got another way of looking at this then. So you've got these things here, exactly the same, by the way, these things here, and these things are really important to me. So I'm going to try and focus my energy on these things here. And then I know there's still going to be things that I need to do, so these are the things that I need to do. So I still need to go out, and actually I still need to empty the bin, and I still need to do those things. I still need to collect that prescription and do all the things that I know is going to take up energy, but I need to do those. So they're kind of taking up my energies too. We've got a bit of space now because we know that it's inevitable that the other things in life, we're going to get there. We're going to spend some energy on them anyway. But actually, if I can prioritise the things and put in the things that are really important and spend the energy on those, and then take a bit of time and pace myself, then what I can do is actually just about fit it all in. So again, it's just a visual way of saying to people about priorities. It's a very nice way of looking at it, and you can, say, people can very clearly sometimes be able to identify what the priorities are and where their energies are going. So again, just a a fun way of looking at it, and it breaks up the presentation.
So there's still space for pints of beer as well.
There's still space for pints of beer. I tell you, I'm so relieved that that second one did it, because I was just like, great, okay. So again, just things that can help: activity diaries, establishing a baseline, identifying priorities, looking at weekly planners. So getting, like we've got diaries and planners around that we use as an example, but I'm sure people have them already. And we use, also we've got something like the Wellbeing Journal, which is something that Sarah Booth devised. Again, we just looked at a way of monitoring how people, what people's activities levels are, what's important to them, and how they can plan their week. So various things that you can use depending on what people want to do. Education, as we said, is really important, and use of analogies can be really helpful in trying to just make it more relevant to the person and more meaningful in terms of, then people respond to different things, as we all well know, and using relaxation and mindfulness strategies as a way of thinking, right, to top up that energy jar. So if you're kind of trying to convince people about relaxation techniques, it's just, it's a way of getting that balance. We're working again on that efficiency, getting that balance. Okay. And there's some references there as well, which will be on the website. Okay, so thank you, Julie.
So now we're going to have a look at tips. I'm just going to be sharing with you what we use in the Breathlessness Intervention Service to get our patients to exercise. So I know there's a majority of physiotherapists in the room, and we're usually the ones looking after exercise, and you know that it's sometimes very difficult to get patients to exercise. So I'm going to share with you what we do, but in the end I hope that you share with me and everybody else what you use, because I'm probably not going to touch on everything that exists out there. So the benefits of exercise, we're all healthcare professionals, we know that exercise is good for you, it does a lot of things. I've put on there the ones which are the most relevant to our patients. It improves energy levels. Breathless patients will spend a lot of energy on just breathing. So if we can convince them that although it's not going to feel like it as they're exercising, but on the longer term, they will have more energy. By getting more active in general, they will have more energy to do more things or things more exciting than just breathing. That can usually be a good thing to help them to, okay, I'm going to do this, it's going to help me. Exercise also improves sleep. It will improve the body's general resistance to fatigue. It will improve breathlessness, as we know, blood circulation, appetite, mood, and lots of different things. We also know for cancer patients, for example, going through chemotherapy, research shows that they will perform better. So if you look at their general physical state, patients who are more active during their chemo will perform much better than somebody who's not active. So that's another good tool to use to motivate patients to get a bit more active. So I'm going to mention this just because I've often patients in their mind, when you mention the word exercise, they see having to go to the gym 3 times a week, getting on a bike, going for a run, saying, I can't do this, what do you think, I'm breathless. This is a study which they describe, and we're going to go for it, an exercise program that they did with patients. So 48 patients, 12 weeks program. It was low intensity exercise. We're going to go through the exercises in a minute. But just to show you, give you an idea, 30 seconds and 45 seconds and in the end 60 seconds. So they are progressing in duration as the patient could tolerate it. And it had to be at a low level on the modified Borg scale. So we're not looking at very high levels of breathlessness. The patient didn't have to be really, really breathless. If they could just maintain it for that long at a low Borg, the clinicians were happy. So the patients had to do these exercises daily at home, and once a week they would have to go and do it with a clinician in a hospital setting. So the exercise is really basic. It looks a bit like what you would find in a pulmonary rehab program, for example. So shoulders circling, full arm circling, increasing and decreasing circles with the arms, abdominal exercises, just contracting the abdominal muscles in sitting in a chair, wall press-ups, sit to stand, quads exercises, calf raises, walking on the spot, and last step up. Okay, so it's not strenuous. If you're not even getting extremely breathless, it's okay, and it's not for a long period of time. So now if we look at the results, so this is looking at the general patient performance, so resistance to fatigue and breathlessness combined. This is the control group, so they did nothing for 12 weeks, they just carried on with their normal routine. It stays quite flat. If we look at the training group, these are the outcomes before, and these are the outcomes after the 12 weeks. So it's not too bad. If you think that it's a low level, they can achieve much better if they were doing something much more strenuous. So it's quite good. So that, again, to prove to you, but so you can prove to your patients that they don't have to be huffing and puffing in the gym to actually get benefit from exercising. I believe that, there's always a way for exercise. So it's got nothing to do with the side where I'm just talking, I like to talk. So whatever, unless a patient is really, really poorly and actively dying, I think that even if you're bedbound, there's always going to be a little things that you can do to exert yourself and to help yourself a bit more. Say, okay, I'm in the bed, what's the matter? I don't need to exercise. But well, if you to exercise, you'll have a bit more posture. You'll probably be able to help your carers a bit more. You'll be able to turn on the bed. If you don't, you're going to lose that. And your breathlessness is probably going to improve as well. So there's always a point in exercising, whatever the physical state of the patient. Now, potential barriers to exercise. Misconceptions is often the big one. Not only from patients, but also from wives and husbands. Oh no, she's too unwell. You can't make her do that. No, she has to rest. The doctor told us that she has to rest. Patients will tell you, oh no, I have to rest. My lungs are not good. When I move, I get breathless, so I shouldn't move. I'm just going to sit here and avoid the breathlessness. Or I'm just way too unwell to exercise. Exercise is no good for me. I used to do things, but now it's all gone. So our role, I think, is to say, okay, look, no, you're not going to be in danger if you exercise. If you exercise, you're going to be better. I know it doesn't feel like it. It's not going to feel like it for the first few weeks, but you will see on the longer term that it's going to improve your breathlessness. You will feel much better if you exercise. That will also come with all the education that I'm sure you do anyway in terms of breathlessness. Breathlessness is not harmful for you. You will not die of being breathless. So that all comes in the same package. Another potential barrier to exercise is the fear. Patients are really scared of being breathless. As I was saying just now, they think sometimes that their life is in danger if they exert themselves. If they experience breathlessness, they're damaging their body. So this is something that you can also address. A lack of motivation, that's also quite common. Lack of time. And the weather. The weather is a big one. In BIS, we have our regular ones who come back to us usually in springtime. We get a phone call from them. Oh dear, hello, it's Mr. So-and-so again. Yes, how are you doing? Yes. Oh, I'm really, really unwell, and you should come over to see me. Okay, we go around, have a little look, and they haven't done anything in the winter. So we start from scratch. We get them to walk about, give them a nice walking program that they do. They get a pedometer, they give you really, really nice numbers. Everything's going very well. They've got a walking program that's very good. That time of the year, they are the best, top. Go there in 2 months, they haven't stood up from the chair. They're just there, and in spring we get another phone call from them. And it just turns around and around and around and around. So weather is also a big barrier, and I think it's also our role to educate the patient and try to find things for them to do in the winter if they don't want to go out, or if they do gardening as an activity, try to find alternatives to avoid the vicious circle of patient deconditioning over the winter and coming back to you in spring. So what can help? A few things. I'm sure you probably have different things, but a few of my things anyway. Addressing misconceptions and reassuring, as I was saying. SATS monitors can be useful. You have to be careful with those. We don't want patients to be become completely attached to their probe and not wanting to take them away. Whatever they're going to do, it's going to be there, and they're going to be checking all the time, okay, it's okay. So we can use them to see, okay, look, you are exerting yourself, you go up the stairs and come back, and we check your oxygen levels. We check them before, we check them after. Look, it hasn't changed. You are breathless, indeed, that's fair enough, but your oxygen levels are okay. Your body is doing what it should be doing by making you breathless. It's working faster to bring more oxygen in the system, and it's coping with it. So being breathless shouldn't stop you from exercising. You're not in danger, you've got enough oxygen, you're going to be okay. We're defining exercise. So, as I was saying again, explain to your patients, it doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym. It's okay. You can find something that's going to be suitable for you, to your level. We will find something. And offer a personalized approach to exercise. So what we do, we've got different packages. You will give them to the patient and say, okay, look, Mr. Smith, I've done this for you. I always say, I've done this for you. Because if I've done this for you, I've taken the time to do this for you, you're going to take the time to do that for me. It's not for me, it's for you, but I've taken the time to do that. In real life, I mean, we're clinicians, we've got lots of patients. We don't always have the time to sit with our dear friend physiotherapist that I hate, as you probably all do. It takes 40 minutes to find one exercise. So if you want to put 10 exercises on them, I'll let you do the counting. It's going to be a long time. So if you have to spend this time for each patient, it's going to be a lot of work. So we have templates, but the patients don't know that. Different levels. We've got templates for patients who are bed-bound, chair-bound, active, but not very high level. We've got 3 levels for active patients. If you just take the time, you take half a day to do templates, and then you can just adapt them to your patient. Say, okay, he's going to be a level 2, I'm going to give him that, and it's going to be okay. With the programs, we have diaries attached, because these are quite good for the patient, for their motivation. They can start putting their numbers, and then they can look back, oh, I'm progressing quite well, that's good, I'm going to keep going, because if I'm here after 3 weeks, it's going to be even better in another 3 weeks. Another thing which is good, setting goals with the patients rather than for the patients. I'm not saying that any of you do that, but I know that it happens sometimes. Say, okay, Mr. Smith, these are your exercises. You do 10 of each every day, and I'll see you next week, or I'll see you in 2 weeks. And he's not going to do them. What can help? Oh, Mr. Smith, look, I've done this for you. Try to do 10 of each, okay? If you can't, do as many as you can. Even if you do 1, it's okay. Do 1 to start with, and try to add up as you can. Increase as much you do, how much you're doing as you can. Now, how often do you think you're going to be able to do that? Once a week? That's fine. I take it. I'd rather a patient saying to me that he's going to do it once a week, and he's actually going to do it, rather than me telling them to do it every day, and he's not going to do it at all. Okay, so whatever they think they're doing, even if it's once a week, it's okay. Take it. So, okay, once a week, what day do you think it's going to be better for you? When is it going to work the best for you? Oh, on a Wednesday. Okay, on a Wednesday, morning, afternoon. Try to be really, really precise when you set up the goal, because in this way, as you're talking it through with the patient, they're picturing it, and you're increasing the chances that they're actually going to stick to it, and they're actually going to do it. Okay? So, oh yes, also insist on the importance of pacing and progression, as I was saying. We don't have to go and do 10. Do as many as you can. Slowly progress. They are in control, and that's going to reassure them. And they're going to feel much more confident that they can actually do it at their rhythm. And if they feel that they're too breathless and they can't do 10, they're still doing something. So that's always good not to put the pressure, not too much pressure on the patients when it comes to exercise. Getting other people involved, like family members and friends, for both reassurance and motivation can also help, because the patient will have somebody with them that's going to reassure them if they're ever in trouble. there's somebody there. And if somebody's doing the activity with them, the wife will always say, come on, darling, it's time for the exercises, go on. There's more chances that the patient is actually going to do it than if he's just left with it and he has to find the time to do it. Exercising in a group setting also increases motivation. That's why we use, in BIS, we do use a lot groups in the communities are organized by the council. We have health coaches as well working in the villages around Cambridge who run groups, but also we work with the patient one-to-one. And pulmonary rehab as well is a good resource. So because exercising together, there's more chances that they're going to be doing it than on their own. Other things that can help, being generally more active. So it doesn't matter if the patient is doing an exercise program or a walking program or daily exercise. Always tell them, okay, we're doing this, but try to do a bit more in the house. Exercise is not just about doing these exercises. You can do things, little things. If you're in the kitchen, try to stand up rather than sitting down. Go up the stairs just for the sake of it. Go and walk your dog rather than inviting your friends around for a cup of coffee. Invite them to come to your house and then walk together to the nearest pub or something. That's a way of getting activity in and increasing the activity levels. We have also these little laminated cards with tips on how to increase activity levels, which can be helpful. So you have these ones there, but we can customize them and give out to patients. Finding indoors activities for the winters, as I was saying, we've got exercise DVDs. I know some of you probably know these. They're supposed to be republished, but we're still waiting. Things like ballroom dancing, balls are always good. I put this, but it's really unlikely when any of your patients will have this, but I thought it's just this system that you can use you use your normal bag and you can just use it inside the house, so that's quite good as well for the winter. We code in progress, as I was saying, with the diaries, also with the walking programs. We'll talk about this in a minute. And using monitoring tools, gadgets. People like gadgets. If you give them a pedometer, they're going to walk. They're going to want to wear it. If you say, okay, just walk and measure how much you're walking, doing that. If they've got a little thing, they're probably going to do it more than if they've got nothing really to monitor their progress. So if you can get hold of pedometers, it's always a good thing. What we do in BIS, we have pedometers that we have a stock that we lend to the patient and then they return to us. So you don't have to keep them out necessarily if you can't buy pedometers to just give away. But having a stock that you can lend and get back can be helpful. So now looking at the tools. So, walking programs. We have this one that we designed in the team. But what happened about 2 years ago, I gave this to a patient. So it's basically like this. You just record what you're doing and you set up your goal for the next week. You're probably familiar with these. And what the patient actually did is that he was very, very good, this patient. He redesigned it. So this is quite good. It's made by a patient for patients. So on this one, you actually have to describe what you're doing. It's not just about, I've done 500 meters, I've walked 500 meters to the shop, or I've done 500 meters to somewhere. And he felt that that was a much nicer approach to the walking program than just something really anonymous in terms of activity. So personalized exercise programs, as I mentioned before, we've got them here. Group exercise classes, as I mentioned before as well, for motivation, they're always good. Health coaches, if you have them in your area. These are quite a good resource for patients who are either very complicated in terms of their condition or poor motivation. You can have the choice of having a one-to-one, so they will come to your house and take you to the swimming pool and swim with you, for example. So that's quite good. Or if you have to go for a walk, they will come with you to your house and you will go for a walk together. So patients who don't really like groups but need that motivation, health coaches are a good resource. Exercise DVDs, so we have these one, but there are several around. I think there might be one.
They're just green.
Yeah, the Macmillan one as well, which is quite good. Finding alternative activities. We are lucky that we're able to offer patients golf lessons. Yeah, cool, I know. But there's other things like swimming, dancing, bowling, gardening, anything that involves physical activity, but disguised in a way that the patient will not feel as if they are exercising, because most of them will not want to exercise. And the last one on my list is NEM, so electrostimulation, as Anna was mentioning this morning in her talk. These work very well for patients who will just not have any of it. You try everything. You give them a program level -5. You give them 5 pedometers. You put posters all around their house. No way, they're not moving off their sofas. Say, okay, that's fine. I've got something for you. We're going to have this. Just going to stick these pads to your legs, and you keep watching TV. It's fine. I don't mind. So you show them how to use it. They use it once, twice a day. And after a few weeks, they will say, you know what? I think that your thing there, it's actually doing me good. I've noticed when I go up the stairs, I don't get as breathless. It's bizarre. What do you think it is? Well, it can get even better if you exercise, as I've been telling you for 6 months. So this is a very good introduction to exercise, and for patients who are reluctant to do it, it works very well. But even for patients who are, we find patients who are really motivated, but if they are really, really weak, to get them to improve a bit quicker, we could use these as well. So we have 2 devices, and we just have to purchase replacement pads for between patients. So that's all. They've got run on batteries, and we don't have to change the batteries that often. So they are quite cost efficient as well. Now, innovative tools, I thought I'd put that there. That's not necessarily going to be relevant to our patients, but I thought it's always good to know these things, what's around. So this is the Apple Watch. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's not out yet. But there's an app on there which enables you to track. So you can set up goals in terms of activities. There's a built-in pedometer, and it records like an active watch. It records your activity level. So it knows if you're going up the stairs, it knows if you're moving, it knows if you're sleeping, it knows if you're standing up, it knows if you're sitting down. So you have stand time, and these are circles that just fill in throughout the day. The more active you are, you can set up your goals, and it will fill in if you've reached your goal or not. It also sends you reminders throughout the day to get more active and to stand up, or to just stand, or to do your steps. Or it works with an app, so you can really personalize it how you want. These are already in use. I don't know if you've probably seen these. They're called active watches. So you just wear this band, and it works with an app, so you can use it on a tablet or on a phone. Same thing, it's got a pedometer built in within it, and you can set up goals. It will know, it's watching you all the time, so it will know what you're doing, and so you link it to your app, and then it tells you if you reach your goal or not, and how far you are from your goal. So it's quite good. I found that really funny as well. This is a cycle desk. I was thinking, we're soon going to have it in the NHS. We're going to have to self-power our computers by just cycling around. And this is also the trend. Trying to bring the outdoors into indoors when people are exercising. So just using screens. A lot of gyms are starting to do that. So you're running in front of a screen, which pretend that you're on a beach or something, and you're just really happily. There are some systems quite complicated as well, where you're just surrounded by screens. So in a complete virtual environment, and some people enjoy it. So yeah. and if they find that it motivates them to run more. Anyway, that's it. So our last slide, which is our, I think that we use that sentence with every patient that we meet for the first time. That's a bit how we introduce our intervention. Although it may not be possible to change what is happening in the lungs and heart, we can always influence how we feel, think, and behave. So, in a way, we're not going to be taking the breathlessness away, but there are things that we can do to help you deal with it, manage it better. Yeah? Okay, thank you.
A bit of time actually. I'll leave that because it's got our website address on there. But we've got a bit of time just to, that we've thought about. We've been doing a lot of the talking, and we know that there's a lot of expertise in the room as well. So we have some time to just have a, have a few comments, or questions, or any feedback, or anything, in terms of pacing and exercise, the kind of creative strategies, if you like. We thought we could put together ideas, or has anybody got any questions or comments? So we'll throw it out there to you.
One of the pulmonary rehab groups that we run in Tower Hamlets is Tai Chi based exercise.
Okay.
And that's really nice with the more severe breathless patients because the emphasis is on slow, gradual movement, but very much thinking about how you breathe in at the same time.
Yeah, very good.
And I think that appeals to a lot of patients rather than conventional exercise.
Yeah, it was interesting. We did we do a fatigue group for, it's mainly for cancer related fatigue. We're trying to kind of have a relook at that and see how we do it. But we've used some Tai Chi in that before as well as a sort of an adjunct to the exercise part of that we've used, and it's gone down quite well actually. Some people struggle with it, again with that kind of use if they're really overusing their accessory muscles, because some of them, I don't know a lot about Tai Chi, just from experience, so I had a bit of difficulty using it, but it was a really effective one for energy, definitely.
And the outcomes are as good
yes,
as conventional exercise.
Yeah. And I guess it goes, sorry.
No.
I guess it goes with what Millie was saying in terms of choosing. It doesn't have to be, as we know, often when you mention exercise to some people, they think, oh God, I've got to be doing this, that, and the other. And actually, it's something that's, if we're finding something that's meaningful and that they actually really enjoy doing, and it can go in with that as well, can't it? Thank you.
We found our referral uptake to pulmonary rehab from an acute admission really low. We had something like a 13% referral rate to pulmonary rehab from COPD admission. So we've started doing, on a Monday and a Thursday, we just have everyone who's in the hospital at that time with COPD just comes to the physio department, and they don't have to do anything, they can just watch. But what we're finding is that the chat amongst themselves is actually the best bit that we can offer them to give them that motivation to then accept the referral rates. It's great.
So it's sort of more of an open session, is it?
So just trying to motivate each other rather than me.
That's very good actually.
And that's
So how does it work? Do you have to go and take them from the wards, or do you go on the wards?
we have to take them down to our department. So our admission's probably about 4 to 6 on any
Okay, so that's
one
nice.
day.
Yeah.
So it's a manageable number.
Yeah.
But our referral rate's gone up to 60%.
That's a very good
It's
idea.
helpful.
I work mostly with children with cystic fibrosis, so it's not really this particular patient group, but a conference I went to on CF, there was one trust in the UK that have employed a personal trainer, and he doesn't go to people's houses, he does it via video link, and so you do a group setting on video link, so
see our group of patients as actually not not maybe using that technology, but it's coming and we are using it. And it's interesting, lots of I don't know, from your point of view, a lot of patients that we're going around to see, they will have an iPad or some kind of tablet or something there, and that they are using, that we're trying to, so we're thinking if they're using it, it's, great, it's another tool that we can use, isn't it? So that's a brilliant idea.
I'm running a new program, and it's a home exercise program for patients with severe COPD who aren't able to make it to the pulmonary rehab groups.
Yeah.
So it's a 10-week program, and I visit them once a week at home to do pretty much like the basic exercises that you had on the screen, but also energy conservation, pacing, and breathing techniques. And it's really made a big difference because they're quite poorly people. Some of them are chair-bound, if not bed-bound, and they've got lots of other comorbidities, and they haven't been able to access any of the things that would have benefited them. So it's just a new program, which is still, it's not exactly a pilot because I haven't got full time to do it, but we haven't got any end results yet. Just how it's gone. But
It's going to be quite interesting,
patients are
actually.
finding it. That has made such a big difference.
Yeah. I think it will be quite interesting in the end to look at, compare their results with the pulmonary rehab, conventional pulmonary rehab group.
I mean, it's quite unusual that I'm doing it as an OT as well.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, as Mailka said, also looking at exercise in a different way, and those people are a kind of prime audience, aren't they? That if they want to be, they're motivated to do something, but just access-wise, they can't get out to the right program. We do have, we're very well resourced in some ways with things are in this area, but actually we still have pockets of real isolation where people can't get out, like you say, to an exercise program or group that's going on, and sometimes don't have the confidence to be able to then go on to a program. So by doing something exactly like you're doing, may actually then be able to give them the confidence to actually feel like, oh, actually I might be able to try and
that's
go
what
on
I'm
from that.
hoping. Some people
Yeah.
will move on to the pulmonary rehab. And also because I'm in their home environment, I can involve the partners, sometimes the daughters, and the family members. And it helps with carer stress as well, because they do it together and they motivate each other.
That's brilliant. Really interested to hear how that goes with your outcomes and everything. It's really exciting.
Do your patients know that they are they are doing it along with other people? Do they know that? That's
They
good.
do. They never get to see each other.
Yeah, that's why.
Anything else? We will finish up there, but thank you very much, everybody. And our email address, I think, are on the slides that you can access from the website as well. And our website is